Tonight on 3News, the Crown admits a miscarriage of justice against Gail Maney and Stephen Stone, who were both convicted of murder. The Prime Minister's in Washington for the NATO summit, considered a make-or-break moment for US President Joe Biden. The government unveils its 5-pillar climate strategy, but critics say there's no plan, just nice words. And later they've been branded rabbits of the sky. Now there are moves to have Canada geese officially declared a pest. No mai, haere mai. Welcome to 3News. The government has released its climate strategy, which it describes as comprehensive and ambitious. But critics have labelled it embarrassing, farcical and insulting. The strategy is based around 5 pillars: that infrastructure is resilient and communities are well prepared. Credible markets support the climate transition, therefore making it cheaper to reduce emissions. Clean energy is abundant and affordable, which includes doubling renewable energy by 2050. World-leading climate innovation to boost the economy. They're promising to provide tools for businesses to prepare for the future. And that nature-based solutions address climate change, like restoring habitats, ecosystems and native forests. But as Grace Thomas reports, it comes as other climate-related policies are rolled back.
The impact of climate change is no longer just on the way for Port Waikato. It's already here, in the coastal erosion that's been eating away at its shoreline for years and swallowed Wayne and Robin Green's dream retirement home. The property's now being demolished to stop it toppling onto the foreshore.
This is a bit more beachfront than we ever envisaged. It's sad and stressful and quite distressing.
We've got people who feel vulnerable in times like this. It's in people's faces, they see it.
It's that vulnerability the government says it's trying to prepare communities for, announcing a 5-pillar climate change strategy aimed at building more resilient infrastructure, boosting clean energy production, as well as support for climate mitigating technologies and increasing forests.
We're confident that those are the areas that will help us address climate change, that we're in best placed position to be able to prepare for the impact and respond to the impacts of climate change in the future.
The total contradiction between the government claiming it has some kind of 5-point strategy to cut emissions and the government's actual policies, which are to dramatically increase emissions, look for more fossil fuels and burn them.
Since coming into power, the government's rolled back several environmental policies, including reversing a ban on oil and gas exploration, removing agricultural gases from the country's emissions trading scheme, and proposing a stream of job cuts at NIWA and the Ministry for the Environment. This Indigenous climate advocate says the strategy's also a slap in the face for Māori and Indigenous communities who weren't mentioned once in the 3 pages.
It's very clear that from this strategy that the priority is not about communities, it's absolutely about the economy, which is very much in line with this government's actions.
The Minister says between 2007 and 2017, climate change cost around $120 million in privately insured flood damage and $720 million in drought-linked economic loss.
Climate change is a significant cost already for the New Zealand economy, and that these costs in terms of dealing with the impacts of climate change are going to increase.
It's kind of Trumpian in a way, because it's like black is white, war is peace, climate denial is climate action. I mean, it's farcical.
Experts say for meaningful climate action, a suite of policies to support the strategy is needed. But nothing like that was announced today.
And later in the program, I'll speak to leading Kiwi climate scientist, Professor Tim Naish, for in-depth analysis of the government's new climate strategy, why he thinks the plan is insulting. Well, the Prime Minister's optimistic about an informal meeting with the US President in Washington, D.C., despite the ongoing fallout from Joe Biden's faltering debate performance. Any chance of a formal one-on-one in the Oval Office is now off the table. Chief Political Correspondent Tova O'Brien is in Washington, D.C. with the PM. Kia ora, Tova. So Christopher Luxon is doing his best not to get caught up in US domestic politics.
That's right, Sam. Christopher Luxon is a Yankophile, a self-confessed US politics geek, but he has never had front row seats like this, not least during an unprecedented political crisis, but he is doing everything he can to hold his tongue. Washington DC in all her balmy democratic glory. But the impenetrable security surrounding the White House ahead of the NATO summit can't keep out the wailing sound of alarm about the competence of its official resident.
Today, NATO is stronger than it's ever been in its history.
Joe Biden mustered all his verve and vigour to open the summit, knowing all eyes were watching.
And 1 billion people across Europe and North America.
Every word being scrutinised like never before since this.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Did that debate performance concern you?
Again, I'm not talking about US domestic politics. I'm here as Prime Minister of New Zealand, and my job is to work with whoever.
You got one guy lying and you got the other guy doddering away.
But my job is to work with whoever the leader is.
Officials have been trying for most of the year for an Oval Office meeting with the President, but now that all hope is dead, the PM's playing it down.
We won't have a formal Oval Office meeting as such. I'm sure over the course of the next few days there'll be a moment for us to be able to catch up.
You'd been angling for that Oval Office meeting though, hadn't you?
No, that has not been our focus.
Christopher Luxon spent his first day meeting Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. Prime Minister, how's Washington so far?
It's going great.
Fuelled on 0 hours sleep, not even a minute's kip, Luxon ramped up the enthusiasm.
Hello, how are we? Good to see you. Nice to meet you. And I know you're a great New Zealand aficionado and friend of New Zealand as well.
So far, he says no one has raised Biden's future or the debate with him, the PM determined to stay out of US politics. Are you not even remotely concerned about the potential threat that a President Trump could pose?
Well, what I just say to you is it's completely hypothetical, and I'm not here as Connie the commentator, I'm here as Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Luxon's lunch date, Democrat Senator John Ossoff joined the chorus of those backing Biden.
Do you think that President Biden has what it takes for another 4 years in office?
I support the president's re-election campaign.
But that support isn't universal. Things are heating up here on Capitol Hill, not least because it is a ludicrous 38 degrees, but also House Democrats on the Capitol have met for the first time since that debate.
What do you mean you're not on the same page? You're not even in the same book.
Ultimately, there's only one person who can decide Biden's fate, and that's Biden. But he ain't going anywhere, desperate to shift the conversation to project strength.
Today, I'm announcing the historic donation of air defence equipment for Ukraine.
New Zealand followed suit ahead of likely FaceTime between Luxon and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the PM announcing a further $16 million in military and humanitarian support.
I know our contributions have been greatly appreciated. We'll continue to look at it. If there's more that's needed, we'll continue to see whether we can help.
New Zealand recognising that this is not a party you show up to empty-handed.
Well, OK, Tova, how is the Prime Minister managing the diplomatic and political balance so far, do you think?
Yeah, showing up with that cash for Ukraine when it's top of the NATO summit agenda is a good start on the diplomatic front. On the political front, not getting embroiled in those domestic US politics is about the only course of action for the Prime Minister. And Christopher Luxon's reticence to call out Donald Trump, despite the lies in that debate, despite his protectionist bent and the impact that could have on this trade-hungry government, it speaks to the calculus that Luxon is doing and the very real likelihood that Donald Trump could be president again during his prime ministership.
Tova O'Brien there live from Washington, DC. Now, Mihi, thanks so much. Well, during the two-day NATO summit, leaders are expected to agree to enhanced military support for Ukraine. It follows Russia's deadly attack on a children's hospital in Kyiv yesterday. But while Western leaders meet in Washington, Vladimir Putin has followed up his recent meeting with China's Xi Jinping with another big hitter, India's Narendra Modi. ITV's Robert Moore reports.
The destruction across Ukraine and the challenge of containing Vladimir Putin's territorial ambitions are the dark clouds gathering over this critical summit taking place 5,000 miles away. The war raging on its eastern flank is the biggest crisis facing NATO since it was founded 75 years ago. President Zelensky is already here in Washington ahead of other leaders, framing this as a moment when the Western alliance's very purpose is at stake. High on the list of Ukrainian requests is the provision of more Patriot anti-missile defences, seen as essential to neutralise Russia's airstrikes. NATO will certainly provide these, along with billions of pounds more in financial aid and military assistance. But NATO is struggling to achieve its parallel goal of isolating President Putin. The Russian leader is currently hosting the Indian Prime Minister, reminding the West that the Kremlin has other major powers who are still happy to do business with Moscow. NATO's Secretary General, meeting here with the US Secretary of State, said that European allies must also recognise they must ramp up defence spending, reflecting the strategic realities even in these tough economic times.
Now the world is changing. We face serious security challenges, and therefore we need to step up our cooperation. We need to invest more, and not least we need to work more closely with the defence industry.
As NATO leaders arrive in Washington tonight, the question of how much to spend on defence and how to sustain support for Ukraine for several more years will dominate the conversation.
Ritchie?
As the final preparations for the summit are underway, any sense of celebration of NATO's 75th anniversary is tempered by the huge uncertainty that lies ahead.
To some developing news now of a miscarriage of justice in a long-running murder case. The Crown has made the admission in the case of Gail Maney and Stephen Stone, who were convicted of the 1989 killing of West Auckland tyre fitter Dean Fuller Sandys. Grace Thomas is with us now live. Grace, what else can you tell us about this?
Sam, this has come after a decades-long fight against convictions for the murder of Dean Fuller Sandys. Lawyers for Gail Maney and Stephen Stone last week received a memo from the Crown conceding there were grave problems with the evidence heard in two trials in 1999 and 2000s, which we know now have led to a miscarriage of justice. Now, Maney and Stone were jointly convicted in 1999 for the murder of the West Auckland man who went missing the year before. The Crown case was that Gail believed Dean had burgled her and asked Stephen to kill him. Now we know there were two documents which the Crown have now agreed should have been disclosed to the defence lawyers at the time. If they had been, the outcomes of the trials may have been different. Now, Gail Maney is currently on life parole, but she's always protested her innocence since the day of her arrest. Her lawyers in the case have described this as a breakthrough and say it could lead to a swift acquittal. Sam.
Tinakwe, Grace, thank you. Maritime New Zealand has just announced it's cleared the Aratere to return to service after it grounded at Picton last month. It follows revelations today the inter-island ferry was sent off course after an autopilot button was accidentally pushed on the bridge. A leaked internal memo shows the bridge team tried to take control of the ship when it made a turn a mile too soon, but couldn't. We're joined now by senior political reporter Anna White, who has seen the memo. Anna, what more can you tell us?
So this memo obtained by the Post details what sparked the series of events that led to the grounding. As the ferry passed Mabel Island, that's just off Picton, autopilot was on, but at 9:26 p.m. the execute button was inadvertently pressed. That caused the ship to veer off course. The crew initially tried to unsuccessfully regain control. There was about a minute before steps were implemented to try and slow down the ship, but by then it was too late and the ferry ran aground in Te Toki Bay. It is understood that a key part of the investigation will be whether the bridge crew knew how to turn off the autopilot and will investigate claims that no one knew that to override the autopilot you had to hold down the button for 5 seconds. Now, we have had a response from Kiwi Rail over this. They say the safety bulletin that was issued is a standard maritime procedure. It's designed to quickly ensure crew awareness across the fleet after a serious incident, and that it does not replace an investigation. So it also says the autopilot system is not new, has been operating since 2007. It's important that we all understand all of the factors involved in the incident.
OK, Anna White there for us in Wellington. Thank you so much for that update. The Ministry of Education is under pressure to get more than 300 classrooms built by the end of the year to cater for an influx of students from overseas. Record migration numbers are adding to the building troubles at schools, with one principal telling us children are learning in makeshift classrooms, in corridors and stairwells. Political reporter Bridie Whitten has the story.
The students keep showing up and schools need to find somewhere to teach them.
There are cases where The hall is now being chopped up and used for classrooms, under stairwells, corridors.
And the pressure is only building. The latest Stats NZ migration data shows net migration hit 82,800 in the year to May, and nearly 22,000 of those were school-aged children.
There are schools where they have emptied out their libraries, put all the books onto carts, and the libraries wheel around the school.
Even based on last year's migration data, the ministry was scrambling to build enough classrooms. Of the 195,000 migrant arrivals in the year to June 2023, more than 20,000 were school-aged children, half of which settled in Auckland.
But that pressure already existed before this increase in migrants, so it's exacerbating this issue, and so we really need some support from the government to fix this.
Based on the influx, the Education Ministry calculated it needed 641 more classrooms to accommodate growth. 270 of those have been built, leaving 371 to be completed by the end of the year. How the ministry builds school property could also be changing. Erica Stanford, the Education Minister, ordered a ministerial inquiry into the issue in March. The review is now complete and under consideration.
When we're talking about taking some of the people away from the Ministry of Education who manage property, who manage the English second language, who manage all those supports, learning support needs, I do worry about how those needs are going to be met.
At Papatoetoe High School, the number of students for whom English is a second language has more than doubled, from about 150 to over 400 in just 1 year.
When you get students that are migrating from overseas, no disrespect to them, but those enrolments aren't necessarily easy. They bring with them complications.
Budget 2024 pledged more than $45 million to children who don't speak English as a first language. Education and Immigration Minister Erica Stanford's office told us last year's influx of children was a one-off. The government says they've also taken steps to rebalance the immigration settings.
Time now for a look at the weather from today, and just as you predicted, Heather, it was a bit foggy and frosty.
Yeah, always the result, well, often the result anyway, of such a strong winter high. Frost found its way to the beach. Bruce captured it this morning. He reckons he was still in shorts and t-shirt though. Severe frost hit both islands, with eastern Rangataiki the coldest spot, -8. Then there was the fog, very slow to lift, and in some parts it didn't lift at all. And Alexandra Airfield still -1.1 degree at 1 this afternoon thanks to that fog. More fog, more frost tonight. I'll have all the details after sport.
That is chilly, Heather. We'll see you soon. Still to come, the OCR remains unchanged, but for the first time in a long time, there are signs interest rates could soon be coming down. A healthy young farmer was told he had a virus and to go home and rest. 2 weeks later, he was dead. And relief for parents after a Manawa 2 childcare that was to be closed by the Ministry of Education gets a reprieve. The official cash rate has been kept at 5.5% for the 8th time in a row. But there are signs a cut could be coming sooner than expected. In a statement, the Reserve Bank said it expected inflation to return to within the 1 to 3% target in the second half of this year, and that business activity had weakened. That's seen more economists pencil in a rate cut for November. Construction on another road of national significance in the Waikato is set to begin in 2026. The proposed 16-kilometre, 4-lane extension of State Highway 1 from Cambridge to Pierere still needs resource consent, but officials say it will have a big economic impact on the region.
I'm really pleased that the government's treating this matter with some urgency as a road of national significance. I believe there'll be a demonstrable impact in economic wellbeing for our community and actually the wider Waikato region.
When completed, State Highway 1 will feature 4 lanes all the way from Warkworth, north of Auckland, down to Pierere in the Waikato, a distance of over 220 kilometres. There are calls for the country's booming Canada geese population to be declared a pest. Nobody knows exactly how many of the introduced species are now in New Zealand, but in places like Christchurch, they've become a smelly, dirty and costly problem. Senior reporter Juliet Speedy reports.
In the city, by the rivers and in the parks, you don't have to go far to see Canada geese.
We often get them up here and
pooing all over the walkway.
Many say the pooping, polluting geese are taking over the city.
It'll certainly make a mess, and we pray when it rains so it can wash it all off. Not good for the animals, not good for the humans, carrying all this muck around under our shoes.
And that poo is toxic.
A while ago there was a couple of dogs at the dog park that died from something mysterious, and it sort of makes me wonder now if that's what that was.
But they're more than a pest for farmers.
They can do a significant amount of damage,
which can come at a great cost.
It's about $4,000 a hectare of damage they could do, and that could be overnight. And you only get one chance at growing that crop for the year.
And birds of a feather flock together.
They will come into paddocks at night when you can't see them and graze or destroy the crop. So you wake up in the morning and your crop or your grass is gone.
It's hard to know exactly how big the growing population of the geese is. Fish and Game says the 60,000 estimate is probably too low.
The biggest problem here is the volume of birds that are around, so the key thing here is making sure that we manage those numbers in a proper way.
Federated farmers say the birds should be classified as pests.
Once it's on a pest list, then it opens up the doors for a few other mitigation options that might be available.
Pests that excrete around 1 kilogram a day.
That is a lot of shit, yeah.
And it's an issue that's ruffling feathers right around the district.
Well, Juliet joins us now from a very chilly Christchurch. Juliet, what is the solution here then?
Well, it's complex, Sam, but Federated Farmers explain it to me like this. Fish and Game used to have the job of culling the geese, but then the farmers and landowners got frustrated that they weren't doing a good enough job. So the task fell back on the farmers and landowners to cull the geese, which is where it still remains to this day. But the problem with that is the farmers need to get permission from Fish and Game to cull the geese over the bodies of water, i.e. the lakes and rivers on their farms, which slows the whole process down. So Fed Farmers told me today that they believe a hybrid approach would be best, where both Fish and Game and the farmers or landowners have the job of culling these geese, making it, and forgive me for this, Sam, one big wild goose chase.
Oh my gosh, Juliet, thank you for that. Dave Davey was a healthy farmer, young and fit, when he started to get chest pains. But when he went to the doctor, he was told it was just a virus, go home and rest. 2 weeks later, Davey was dead, and now his partner and son have complained to the Health and Disability Commissioner. Nadine Roberts has the story.
It was supposed to be Dave Davey's year. New job, new house, and the 20th anniversary with his partner.
Got home at 5 and I found him collapsed and passed away on the couch.
An autopsy later revealed the 46-year-old had died from blood clots that had been present for some time. 2 weeks prior to his death, Davey had seen a doctor.
He explained how he collapsed and how he had chest pain and he had shortness of breath. And she said straight away, I think you have a virus. While you're here, I'm going to write out a form for a couple of blood tests and then you should be all right, go home, and I think you'll be fine with some rest.
Davey's partner, Cherie Walker, has now complained to the Health and Disability Commissioner. She's questioning the treatment he received and the rules around foreign doctors working temporarily in New Zealand.
He didn't have a virus. The coroner's report showed that he died from deep vein thrombosis and a blood clot to the lung. It shouldn't have happened.
The medical practice can't be identified while the matter's being investigated, but the chair of the New Zealand Medical Council said the doctor in question is currently registered. Dr Rachel Love added all doctors, including locums, were given practising certificates, which includes their scope of practice, their employer and their supervisor.
And it's more like a big hole in the centre of your chest that you just can't fill anymore. So we've been together a long time. And it's hard when you're coming home from work and you kind of forget for a second that he's not there, and then you remember it all over again, and it's just devastating.
A family left behind, now hoping to get answers.
Do stay with us, because after the break we'll be talking to leading climate scientist Professor Tim Nash to get his views on the government's new climate strategy. And the brand new weapon in New York's war on rubbish is wheeled out to widespread ridicule. Plus, later in sport, Lulu Sun's demanding schedule catches up with her, and battling cramp, her dream run at Wimbledon comes to an end. This is 3 News. If you've just joined us, here are our top stories so far tonight. The Crown has admitted a miscarriage of justice in the case of Gail Maney and Stephen Stone, who were convicted of the 1989 killing of West Auckland tyre fitter Dean Fuller-Sandys. The Prime Minister's arrived in Washington for the NATO summit, considered a make-or-break moment for US President Joe Biden. And Simon Watt today unveiled the government's climate strategy and said it's committed to meeting New Zealand's emissions reduction targets. Well, for more on that strategy, we're joined now by leading climate scientist, Professor Tim Naish. Kia ora, Tim. So you've seen this today. What is your response to the big climate announcement?
Well, I have to say, pretty underwhelming, to be honest. I mean, there wasn't a lot to see there that was new. And I sort of had the feeling maybe the Minister was just reminding us that he hasn't forgotten about climate change.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've read the strategy. It didn't take very long. There's only 3 pages, and that's just one-sided. Watch the press conference. I mean, is there actually anything of substance in there?
Look, I think what it signals is a strategic direction, which is great. There's nothing particularly new there that I would think most governments don't have in their framework for dealing with climate change. And I think what we're all waiting to see is, you know, what are the credible pathways? How are we going to actually achieve our obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement to reduce our emissions, and how are we going to keep New Zealanders safe? How are we going to protect our infrastructure and our communities? And time is short. We've got to be having more detailed plans on this.
Yeah, I mean, the Minister called it comprehensive and ambitious. Is it?
Right. No, there's nothing. I mean, honestly, not at this stage. There's nothing that the previous government hadn't already outlined and implemented. So light on detail, but good on sort of aspiration.
Look, it came out, Tim. There's also been some sobering research out just in the past week that the world was 1.5 degrees warmer over the past 12 months. That's the threshold that the Paris Agreement was supposed to keep the world under. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean?
Well, I mean, it means we're essentially running out of time. And, you know, the Paris Agreement has a 1.5 target, and certainly to keep global warming below 2 degrees. And this is because we're getting dangerously close to some thresholds, which once we cross them, we can't come back. There will be irreversible changes for this planet. So, I mean, it's not great reading. The planet continues to warm. We have to keep our foot on the gas, so to speak, when it comes to dealing with our mitigations commitments. But we also have to urgently start thinking about a systems-wide approach that has long-term thinking in it on how we protect New Zealanders, how we make New Zealand more resilient to those impacts we simply can no longer avoid. They're hitting us. We know they're hitting us. We've seen it over recent weeks and months, and they're only going to get worse.
Just finally, Tim, quickly, you're a climate scientist, obviously in touch with many climate scientists. How are you all feeling, and particularly on a day like this with a strategy like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 things, I think, Sam. It's frustrating because as climate scientists, we've been seeing the evidence is so overwhelmingly clear. And it's been that way for a long, long time. So, you know, governments, all of us are morally obliged to act. We have to get on with it. It's also a bit concerning when you look at, you know, in this country we're losing funding in key areas, we're losing key capability, key scientists, and you know, it just doesn't seem like there is a clear strategic direction to deal with the challenges, the priorities that New Zealand faces right now.
Professor Tim Naish there live for us from Wellington. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. A kindergarten in Manawatu will remain open after plans by the Ministry of Education to strip it of its licence were halted. But Country Kindy has only been granted a stay of 12 weeks. Laura Frickberg has more.
On State Highway 54 between Fielding and Palmerston North lies Country Kindy, a centre the parents of 22 children rely on. Today there was relief that for now it'll remain open.
It was such a positive outcome, not only obviously for
us as parents, but for the centre and also the community who's been behind it as well. So really, really great news.
The kindergarten was due to lose its licence on Monday over what the Ministry of Education said were curriculum violations and government management issues. But after an appeal by the Centre and Early Childhood Council, it'll remain open for the next 3 months.
It's vital because if they can't go there, where are they going to go? It is hard to find country-type kindergartens like that.
The appeal was filed at the Wellington District Court, which prevents the parties involved from saying much more. In a statement, the Ministry of Education simply said the kindergarten can remain open for the next 12 weeks on the condition there are no new enrolments. Earlier this week, ACT leader David Seymour met ministry officials after calling the decision acting against the will of the community. Today, he said it's part of a wider issue of ministry overreach.
There are some complaints that the regulation can be heavy-handed and excessive. That's why the government has a sector review of regulation in early childhood going on.
For now, though, parents are just happy they have somewhere to send their kids.
A big thing is if you can see that your children are happy and thriving and feel safe, that's all you can ask for as a parent.
But something she may have to find elsewhere, with closure still a possibility.
Well, Ollie is here now with sport, and look, we still love her, but Lulu Son's dream run at Wimbledon's come to an end.
Yeah, unfortunately it has, Sam. You could just see those tired legs starting to catch up with her during that quarter-final. She clearly gave it her best effort, really started well. It looked so promising as well, but you just felt like the last 8 matches had really caught up with her. She had to play qualifying matches to get into the main draw. So, unfortunately, Lulu Son's run at Wimbledon is over. We will have more on that incredible effort at Wimbledon soon. Plus, Spain advanced to the Euro 2024 final, why they may have just unearthed the game's next star in the process. And David Nika eyes his road to the Cruiserweight World title, why his next opponent will be his toughest yet.
Welcome to a new Swift world with Suzuki and 3News Sport.
Lulu Son's dream run at Wimbledon has come to an end. After winning the opening set in her quarter-final with Donna Vekic, her 8-game stretch, which included 3 qualifying rounds, appeared to catch up with her, battling cramp and eventually losing the final 2 sets. But as Gordon Finlater reports, it won't be long until she has 2 more lifelong dreams to look forward to.
She's been the feel-good story of Wimbledon, but in the end, the quarter-final was a hurdle too far.
Game so much, Vekic.
Despite making her exit today, Lulu Son has left a permanent mark on our tennis landscape.
Honestly, just really happy to see that in New Zealand, to be able to have people watch tennis more and more.
Among the many tennis clubs throwing watch parties overnight was Tiana, where locals gathered to cheer on their hometown hero. And there was cause for celebration early on, Sun going on to win the first set 7-5.
What poise, what skill. The first set goes the way of Sun.
But the second half of the encounter would be a different story. Vekic levelling the match, winning the second set 6-4. Sun then crumbling as 8 gruelling games in the space of just 15 days took its toll.
I had troubles physically with some cramps, but that's maybe the only regret I have is I couldn't keep up physically.
Despite the Wimbledon dream being over, there's still plenty to smile about. Her run to the quarter-finals earns her $780,000 in prize money. A rise in the world rankings from 123 to near 50 will also see her qualify for the main draw at next month's US Open. And there's another first to look forward to before then.
I'm super excited to be able to play at the Olympics with Erin.
If Sun can carry her form from Wimbledon, the Kiwi flags may also be flying on centre court in Paris.
Well, Spain will have the chance to win back the Euro trophy after defeating France in the first semi-final this morning. They had to come from behind to claim a place in their first final since 2012, but today it was all about their youngest player who wrote his name into the history books. Natasha Payne watched the action.
The referee blows the final whistle, and Spain are through to the final of Euro 2024.
Jubilation for Spain, still on track to win their first Euros title in 12 years.
We played an amazing game, all together the 90 minutes, so we really deserve this.
Both teams had plenty to prove, but it was France that scored first in the 8th minute.
Neves doesn't want to pounce, it's a great ball in!
But only 13 minutes later, this happened.
Got a bend on it! That is simply amazing!
16-year-old Lamine Yamal equalising with a stunning strike, making him the youngest player to ever score in the tournament's history.
You know, players in their mid-20s would be proud of that goal. Incredible individual brilliance.
The youngster, perhaps always destined for greatness, this photo resurfacing of him as a baby with Lionel Messi at a Barcelona photo shoot in 2007. The job wasn't done, but Spain took the lead just 4 minutes later.
Dani Olmo! They've turned it around!
3 goals in a thrilling 25 minutes. The rest of the match was slow torture for the French, and for Spain, just holding on.
The goal is done to reach the final. Now we are one step closer to the glory.
Spain will face either England or the Netherlands, who play tomorrow morning, but today it's all about their teenage sensation.
Just a week after Portia Woodman-Whitcliffe announced her international retirement, Tyler King has also confirmed the Paris Olympics will be her last in the black jersey. The 30-year-old first took the field for the Black Ferns Sevens when she was still at high school at the age of just 17. From there, she's won 6 medals, including Olympic gold, and has featured in 60 tournaments, the most of any women's player.
Honestly, there's days I wake up, I'm like, this is an incredible life that I've been given and I get to live and have lived, and, you know, it's a little bit sad when you think about it that it is coming to an end, but then there's so many more things too that I'm really looking forward to.
King won't be hanging up her boots for good though. She'll continue to play for the Illawarra Dragons in the NRLW for the next 2 seasons. It's set to be the biggest test of his young professional boxing career, but David Nika is confident he has the goods to overcome Blake Caporello. The Australian was confirmed as Nika's next opponent today in what will be his first time headlining a fight, and one he hopes can be a launching pad for his career. Face to face with the man David Nika hopes to get past to continue his run at the Cruiserweight World title.
This matchup is a step up in competition. I'm fighting a guy with 10 times as much experience as me in the ring. So he's the kind of guy that I need to make a statement out of.
That statement won't come easy though. In the 7 fights he's had against Kiwi opponents, Blake Caporello has never lost.
I was beating those guys up when I was a teenager, you know, like there's nothing that scares me about Blake.
Caporello clearly has the experience. He's fought 267 rounds to Nika's 24. And crucially, the Australian has gone the full 10 rounds. Nika has never gone past 5.
There's nothing wrong with my gas tank. It's just a matter of actually managing my own energy levels and not blowing myself out too early.
Nika has decent pedigree in his corner to ensure he doesn't. Joseph Parker is one of the co-promoters of the fight and is confident Nika has what it takes.
David needs to be switched on. In boxing, you just have to be switched on for every second of every minute of every round.
Can't drop your guard.
You can't drop your guard. You can't get complacent.
The big names aren't just reserved for the main card, though, with Hollywood star power backing the undercard. Cliff Curtis has long had a passion for boxing and has teamed up with Rakaya Warren, hoping to help launch the sport's next big name.
Coming from a small town like myself, you sometimes just need a nudge. You know, you need a door or a window to open, and you get the opportunity to sort of see what you've got.
That's exactly the opportunity awaiting Nika.
If I can stop him within the 10 rounds and even end his career, that's what I'm here to do.
David Nika is about to get the first significant test of his boxing credentials. Finally tonight, Sail GP will have a home in New Zealand next season, with Auckland confirmed as the host venue to replace Christchurch. Organisers confirmed the event wouldn't return to Lyttelton Harbour after dolphin sightings and economic issues plagued this year's race. Auckland had previously been denied hosting rights after land at Wynyard Quarter wasn't cleared for spectator use. good to see that issue has finally been resolved. I expect I'll see you down there, Sam, for some racing. Great news with the America's Cup and all the COVID issues there.
And Auckland will be happy. Hopefully no dolphins getting in the way.
Let's hope so.
Thanks so much, Ollie. New York's rolled out its latest innovation in the war against rubbish: wheelie bins. Mayor Eric Adams debuted his trash revolution by strolling outside with the bin and demonstrating how to use it. Reactions on X, formerly Twitter, have been scathing, with comments like, "Wow, New York really is living in the future. We've literally had these for decades," and "New York learning about trash cans in 2024 is an insane flex."
I saw New York one. They rolled out the trash bins. We are really excited about this. They told us it was going to take us 5 years to do. 2.5 years, we're doing it to remove 14 billion pounds of trash bags off our streets.
There you have it. The bins will cost New Yorkers $82 and are aimed at getting residents to, quote, containerise their waste in order to target the city's rat problem. Heather, I remember getting wheelie bins when I was a kid in Milton, but go New York. Right, Heather is with us now next. Is this lovely fine weather going to continue into the weekend?
Kind of. I know that's a cop-out answer, but hear me out. It really depends on what side of the country you're hanging out in. Our beautiful high starts to leave us from tomorrow, not in a wheelie bin, just because that's what happens. We'll have a southeast flow directing back cloud and showers to the eastern regions Friday and Saturday. Then Sunday, winds return, possibly gale force for Northland, and then all of this rain arrives on Monday, moving in from the west. Tomorrow's good though. The forecast is next. No, my Arnold, welcome back. Tomorrow's another day dominated by the large and intense high pressure system. So we have another round of frost and fog for the morning, but there is a sneaky little cold front hanging out offshore, but it's to the east of the country. But this will push some cloud and a few showers to some as it heads north during the day, but generally speaking, another settled 24 hours for the South Island. Frost forms again overnight with a slight southerly out top and a few clouds for the west and east coast. Then tomorrow, frost and fog for sunrise, and low cloud might hang around in the east, most likely Clutha, Dunedin and the Kaikoura coast. Winds remain light with that slight southerly in the north. It's looking fine too for the North Island tonight, apart from cloudy periods south of a line from Waitomo to Waitarapa. Isolated showers too for the southwest, roughly from Taranaki to Kapiti, and a few for eastern Northland. Now tomorrow pretty much repeated today, but a few showers will develop late morning on the east coast, and Wellington will get the odd shower from midday. But really, it's another crisp and beautiful winter's morning. Frosty for Hamilton and the Coromandel, and even frost for sheltered spots around Auckland. Winds are light, just a sou'easter up top. Fine and frosty for everyone here, even parts of Tauranga. Once the sun's up, it's a fine and calm day with a slight southerly for those near the coast. Few more clouds expected out east tomorrow, with showers arriving from late morning as the wind changes from westerly to southerly. Frosty and foggy again for the morning, Taumaranui, a couple of light showers for Manawatu and Whanganui, then after midday for Wellington. Winds will be from the south or southeast. Frosty pretty much everywhere in the northwest first up. Reefton, you'll be frosty and foggy. Sky is blue for the day though, zero wind around. Another crispy morning underfoot out east. The day is fine and calm, but cloud does roll in tomorrow night for some, with a sou'wester developing in the evening for Kaikoura. Another likely severe frost for some, like Alexandra, forming overnight. I'm hoping the fog doesn't return, but there is that risk, and it's not helped by the wind and the fact that there is none. Dunedin, another day of calm. You will get clouds though if you're near the coast, but winds are light. There will be showers for the Chatham Islands. Now fog returns tonight for you Christchurch, but it shouldn't hold anyone up in the morning. There will be frost though, with cloudy periods through the day and light winds. Now winds are just starting to shift around Wellington, and as that southerly arrives, it'll bring with it the cloud, which will hang around all day, then produce some showers in the afternoon. It's looking clear and frosty first up for Hawke's Bay, but then it clouds over, all coming in from that cold front sitting offshore. Showers hit late morning, mainly around the Wairoa district as westerly winds turn southerly. Frosty for some around Bay of Plenty first up, those in sheltered spots especially. There is a southerly breeze, but not too strong, with blue skies all day. Calm, clear and cold for you, Hamilton. Frost in the morning, then warming to 14. No real wind to speak of, and parts of Auckland will wake to frost too. Again, those in sheltered areas and the more rural spots of the city, then it's fine. Nothing else to report. All right, to Oz. A front is ruining the Aussie school holidays. Plenty of showers and rain for the south. And Rarotonga and Niue are expecting sea flooding of coastal areas tomorrow with large swells of up to 4 metres and gales sou'easters. Now back to us and looking ahead. Generally speaking, west is best. Even on Friday, we will have a ridge of high pressure lying over the country, but the southeast flow will bring rain or showers out east, which will continue on Saturday. Then winds pick up for Northland on Sunday. Similar for the South Island. Fine and frosty through till the end of the weekend, but cloud and showers head out east, mainly for Kaikoura and Christchurch. So west is best till Monday, then a really large trough sweeps in from the Tasman Sea, then it pays to be out east. Typical for school holidays. 1 week good, then the next week rubbish.
Ah, well, you can't have it all, can you?
Nope.
Heather, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, we asked you earlier if you believe the government is doing enough on climate change, and let's take a look at the results. Well, I can tell you that most of you don't think it is. 77% of you, in fact. OK, well, that is 3 News for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. You can get in touch with us by emailing newsroom@stuff.co.nz. I'm Samantha Hayes. I'll see you tomorrow.